Virgo, welcome to your May reading. I thought this filter might be fun for you guys, and I'm in a space where I don't think I have enough lighting to use my normal camera, so we're going back to a filter just for this month, and next month we'll be sitting out in the grass, in the sun. All right, so Mercury is going retrograde tomorrow, and that's why I wanted to do this reading today. Your reading is called No Sudden Moves, and the reading doesn't begin until tomorrow. So here we are. It's time to reevaluate your relationships. If you were thinking about having a big talk either today or tomorrow, wait. There is something to consider before you have any conversation with anyone, and that has to do with give and take. Either you have taken too much or you have given too much. Regardless of who's on what side, the imbalance became so great that something needs to be done. Something has to be addressed. There's no way to move forward without saying or doing something. There is a change that needs to be implemented. So, if you're a Virgo rising, and that's what you should be watching if you want to know more about what's going on in what house. If you're a Virgo sun and it's not in and you're not a Virgo rising, then the houses won't apply to you. So, if you're a Virgo rising, your 8th house, which is Aries, houses Venus as of the 2nd, Jupiter in 2 days on the 11th, and on the 24th, Mars. So, what does that mean? It means that small talks, small moments, small mistakes, small indulgences, small slips of the tongue, they become huge and of great consequence, and they can really, really hurt, and they can harm others as well. And it's going to take a little bit of doing to keep from falling into this temptation. There is so much activity in your 8th house that it's like you can't help but get on this roller coaster with just about anybody. Anyone who has any sort of connection to you, anyone that you feel encompasses this 10 of Cups energy. You think you know. You think you know, you think you feel it, either, the anger or the bonding or whatever it is, positive or negative. You think you know, you think you feel it. There's this huge swell of emotion, which is not like you. So even more, you have a tendency to trust it, because then the Virgo logic becomes, this isn't like me, so this must be real. Which is hardly ever the case. But it's so easy to get pulled into the undertow of this energy. It's subtle, but it's powerful. It pulls you way out before you ever realize what's going on. Because Mercury retrograde is going to help all these planets in Aries build this false sense of security around you, that what you're saying is right and how you're feeling is valid, even though these are small moments and small words that are getting, really magnified from you and at you. Okay. Now, one of the things that's very concerning and causes quite a lot of pain in your life is when your libido gets tired of being chaste or obligatory celibate or obligatory monogamous or whatever it is. When you get tired, when you get exhausted from kind of keeping up that obligation, your libido takes over. And when your libido takes over, you have a tendency to make mistakes, big ones. It's very much a Sisyphus scenario. You work really hard and you're loyal and faithful and you push the rock all the way up the hill, And as soon as you're about to kind of get to the plateau, your libido takes over and something happens that, yeah, the rock goes rolling back down. So the Magician here says, you have the option. You are able to put on a show and get anyone to believe anything you want. So you could, cheat or be dishonest. You'll probably get away with it. So it's not that. But it has a tendency to resonate, or let's say reverberate throughout your life to other areas and have a very adverse effect on those areas. Even though you would think that they're not related, excuse me, they are. So it's alarming also because there may be somebody in your periphery or from your past, very likely, who you at one point saw a very solid future with. And because your libido's in charge, this person may be able to sneak back into your life, and there's no guarantee whatsoever that they're good for you. Actually, it's probably pretty close to a guarantee that they're not. So, take that how you want it. But it's going to feel great. And again, small moments turn into big emotions. So, you've got these hard eyes for everybody. You're like, I usually don't feel anything. Love me. I feel stuff right now. Love me. And everyone's like, I've been dying to love you. I want nothing more than to love you, And you're going to be like, oh my God, this feels exactly right. This is exactly what I've been waiting for. Let's take the plunge. There's so many cups that I have not fed in myself. There's so much I want to do. There's so many things I want to feel. And now I feel everything, and it's going to be with you. And that's going to be great. And how perfect is this? Oh, wait. You can't see clearly with these hard eyes. Is what I'm trying to tell you. And every time you blink, they come back, and then you're like normal, and then you blink, and then they come back, and then you're like, oh my God, but he's so cute. My Virgo moon is screaming right now. I keep going between like logical, like, no, this is not a good idea, to like, I mean, the jawline, like, yeah. So, listen, the jawline will make you think this. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, he's the perfect guy. Didn't you know? Didn't you know? Especially, God forbid, he's an earth sign like you. Oh, didn't you know? It's love. Just wait. Just wait. You got Mercury retrograde coming up tomorrow, okay? That's in if you're a Virgo rising, that's in your 10th house. So that's career. So what you want to do is focus, not just get fucked up by being preoccupied with perfection, not putting yourself in a procrastinating, paralyzed state, but actually like having a very kind of frank and open talk with yourself about perfection. Like, what does it keep you from getting done? What do you use it for? Is it possible? What are your goals, for your career revamp while this retrograde is going on? What doesn't quite work the way you want? What doesn't look the way you want? What doesn't suit your image anymore? What do you, how are you evolving, and how is your business or your work reflecting that? And if it's not reflecting that, or if you're not working, or if you're not in some way engaged in something creative, why not? These are the questions that you're asking during the retrograde, and this is a very personal thing. And it doesn't really require anybody else, and it doesn't require anything but focus. If you lose focus, you can really damage yourself during this retrograde, because if you lose focus, you'll go looking for all kinds of distractions. But if your libido can feel however it wants, and you can have a crush on whoever you want. But if you keep this sort of critical, analytical focus on your career during this time, you'll keep from making personal mistakes. And it'll give you a chance to really, see this energy play out. And, maybe he is more than a jawline. We don't know yet. But give it time. Give it time to play out. Now that you know that you've got these hard eyes, and that you're not seeing clearly, time is your friend. It's your best friend right now. So if you use that time instead of, if you use this energy, let's say, instead of projecting it onto someone to fulfill some sort of fantasy or some sort of void that you've just now become aware of because you've just now kind of accessed or had access to these feelings. So now you quickly want to soothe that somehow. Instead of doing that, which is very destructive, and God forbid you choose the wrong person, just bad luck, and then you could have a noose around your neck your whole life. You're like, so instead of doing that, it is so incredibly beneficial for you to take a really critical look at your business, and does it fulfill you, and does it fulfill its purpose? Not just, is it personally fulfilling to you, but does it fulfill what it's supposed to do? Is it meaningful out there in the world? Does it do something for others? Or is it something that's really kind of disconnected from people? Because you may want to use this time to make some bold assertions and kind of change business models a little bit, and perhaps, start looking for another kind of job. It's very possible that you look at this Nine of Cups and decide that, no, none of my cups are being filled. I'm deeply unhappy. See, when you use this energy to critically look at your life instead of projecting it onto a person, then you can see where you're not being fulfilled. Instead of kind of using some vague image of somebody out there as this promise of fulfillment, something that could fulfill you. If you don't lose yourself in that distraction, then you can actually look at your life and look at the components that make up your life and say, okay, well, why am I not fulfilled? Why am I so quick to put this fulfillment out there somewhere? What is it that's missing in my work, in my home life, in my home setup, in the feng shui of my home, in my friendships? What's missing that I'm kind of almost in this cloying way trying to attach importance to something that may not really turn out to be anything? We just don't know. It's too early to know. And that's kind of what I want you to keep coming back to whenever you have these super elevated emotional moments starting tomorrow. Just keep in mind, we just don't know anything yet. We don't know anything about this person yet. We don't know anything about this job offer. We don't know anything about this home or this travel plan or this new friend, or we don't know anything yet. We just don't know. All we know is that we've got rose-colored glasses on, and it's very hard to tell what's what because Virgo's having feelings and Virgo wants to do something with those feelings. And of course, you have every right. You don't do this often, but it's just about kind of baby-proofing the space because you are kind of very young. The Virgin is not an actualized emotional being. That's why it can be such a cold sign. So we need to kind of baby-proof everything around you so you can have these feelings in peace without stepping, God forbid, on something sharp, So the money from others becomes an issue. Whether it's debt, whether you owe someone money, whether it's something that you worked on together that you owe them or they owe you, or that, there's something around money and other people's money and debt, and there being issues around this. So if you're the one who has incurred the debt, it's a very good time to pay it back. If you're the one who has given out the loan or, feels like they were taken from, it's a very good time to bring it up. But it's going to be rocky. It's not the most easy energy because it's been too long. Whatever the debt is or whatever the conversation is, whatever needs to happen, it should have happened already. And since it hasn't, it's just become kind of strange. It's added this element of weirdness to something that could have been really just a run-of-the-mill everyday thing. But now it's become something else, which sucks. But if you take care of it now, at least it'll keep it from getting worse, right? And then now let's talk about the retrograde's mental effects. So it's really easy during the retrograde to kind of go back to a place of panic and fear that you might have experienced as a child. So if you had a bit of a rough childhood, Mercury retrograde can be a time where you can kind of key back into that panic because things can get a little bit weird. You know, when things get weird and you're from a, let's say, colorful home, a vibrant home, you can recall that vibrancy once again. And that can be pretty troubling. So if you're hearkening back to your childhood or to your childhood trauma or to your childhood stress, or you find yourself kind of mirroring that childhood stress or creating it in your present life because something in you is kind of sparking that or waking that back up or connecting you to it again, that's the Mercury retrograde. So whenever you feel yourself going into that space, the one thing that's going to save you, and it's really important to remember whenever you feel like you're being overwhelmed by a crush or overwhelmed by an offer or you're just overwhelmed by feelings and energy, overwhelmed by this panic and fear that kind of keys in from the past, the one thing that you can do that'll be really, really helpful is stay still and allow yourself to be confused without doing something about it, without trying to solve it, without trying to go somewhere with it, without trying to get out of it. Just let it be. If something is panicking you, weirding you out, upsetting you, just let it be. Don't try to solve it. Let it be confusing. Let it be weird. Learn how to focus on things and not hyperfixate on them. So there's the thing. Can this thing be solved? No. Does this make any sense? No. Is this some Mercury retrograde bullshit? Absolutely. Okay, I'm not going to focus on this anymore because there's nothing I can do about this and I can't make sense of it. But if I keep trying to make sense of it, I'm going to overthink, hyperfixate, and try to problem solve something that cannot be solved. So stay still and let yourself be confused. Be okay with being confused and be okay with not having the answers. That's a big, big part of Mercury retrograde in Gemini. Gemini has all the answers. When Mercury goes retrograde in Gemini, nobody has the answers, not even you. Okay? Patience is the key. And then, the most simple thing being the most important and the most difficult, as always. You know this better than anyone. Subtlety is simplicity. It's the best way, the only way. The most important thing about May is that whether you are pushed to it through your friends, your family, circumstance, tragedy, chaos, disaster, the breaking down of relationships or the beginning of new ones, the past coming back, or you hearkening back to your past, however you get there, the conclusion you get to at the end of May in Gemini season is that you need to reinvent your life. You already know this, you've known for quite some time, but you've done your best to avoid it, and we've all let you avoid it, and that's okay. But if you don't reinvent your life now, it's only because you don't have the guts to. And you know that inside. And you will have to answer to you one day about why you couldn't find the strength. I don't know about you, but that's not a conversation I ever want to have with myself. I feel like everything I do and don't do is actually in accordance with a conversation that I may one day have to have with, 80-year-old me. And I need to be able to justify my actions. So, and for me, that means, taking the smart risks and always taking the smart risks. But yeah, this reminds me so much of that episode of Rick and Morty where Morty plays that game, the life game at the arcade. And when he finishes, Rick goes, "Man, you went back to the carpet store? Who beats Cancer and goes back to the carpet store? You should watch that episode. You don't need to go back to the carpet store ever again. You don't need to keep living whatever narrative you were born into. And you certainly don't need to live by anyone else's opinion or image of you. The truth is, this hard eye energy, you could take it and turn it on yourself and love yourself into having enough guts to reinvent yourself. You could. Hi, Virgo. Welcome to the second part of your reading. The light filtered through the plants. I love this reading for you. I think there is fear and panic in any sort of letting go, in any sort of admission of guilt, or even an acknowledgement of somebody else's shortcomings. When you play the perfection game, things get very black and white, but everyone ends up getting judged because no one's perfect. So essentially, when you play the perfection game, you're setting up everyone to lose, including yourself. But May's interesting because it does give you a way out if you want one. You can decide that people aren't perfect and they carry blame, but you're not perfect either, and you carry blame as well. If you're able to do that, you can turn situations that can highlight your shortcomings quite a lot into situations that actually heal the part of you that the shortcoming is originating from. So, how do you do that? Well, one, be still when you're confused. Don't try to talk your way out of something that you can't even really understand yet. And you're not understanding things at the pace you usually do because Mercury is retrograde and it just makes you a little bit more sluggish. Extra emotional, tapped into feelings, mentally sluggish, not the best combo. So, it's not a disaster, it's not chaos, it's not tower moments, but it's alarming enough because when you're all feeling and a little bit slow in the head, you get super romantic and super amped up and kind of extreme. And then when your mind is working straight again, then you start to see all the cracks and all the flaws. More than trying to look out for somebody else who would get into this scenario with you, I'm saying it for you because that realization of those flaws and those cracks is probably more painful for you than it is for them. They didn't even know you weren't seeing them in the first place. They thought you were just fine with how things were. They are not going to realize that you've got this rosy hue over everything right now. But they will absolutely feel it once that hue dissipates and you start to see them with that quick wit that you normally have. Once you've got your eye back, you're not gonna feel the same. So it's important to not let yourself get swept up, especially at the behest of your ego, your libido, whatever you want to call it. If the part of you that is insistent on doing whatever the thing is, if that part of you is insistent and loud and wants satisfaction, that's your libido, that's your ego. And I wouldn't normally conflate the two, but in this situation, yeah. And what it does is it kind of, if you give into it, right? If you say, okay, well, I'm going to cheat, or I'm going to lie, or I'm going to evade responsibility, or I'm going to, wherever your ego rears its head, in that aspect of your life, there will be some sense of, okay, well, this thing, then you don't get to have this thing, or you don't get to have this person, or you don't get to have this friendship, or you don't get to, whatever that thing is that you lack accountability for, has a tendency at this time to move away from you. Now, you can put on a bit of a show and keep that thing around if you want, but I don't think you'll be very successful. Right? So if you're thinking like, yeah, I really kind of want to cheat or roam around or lie or not take responsibility, this is the worst time to be doing that. Because whatever area of your life you do it in, there's a high chance that that thing dissipates then. Okay, now, this 10 of Cups and this High Priestess, you can choose to listen to your gut and pursue someone that seems like they are the 10 of Cups for you and they are going to bring you that fulfillment or that job or that opportunity, whatever it is. You can trust your gut and you can go for that thing, but you're not very attuned to that right now. If you trust your gut the other way and focus on you and your money and your business and use this very intuitive, emotional time to intuitively figure out what's missing in the feeling of your work, in the feeling of your business. Is it telling a story? Is it grabbing people? Are you engaged? Is there a story around your work that you're engaged in? Do you like it? Are you excited by it? Or do you feel like you're leasing years of your life away to somebody else's dreams, somebody else's vision? These are the bigger questions that Mercury retrograde brings up, and it would be such a shame not to explore them and put them in the background for something that, is tantamount to, being charmed. And when that spell wears off, what's left is not something of your liking anyway. So how much more productive to focus this beautiful energy on something that can really give you a lot back. It can nourish you. It can feed you. It can set your life straight. If you are deeply unhappy with the trajectory of your career or the spirit of your career, the spirit of your work, or what it gives you back, if you are, spiritually starving because your work gives nothing back to you, this is the perfect time to go inward, get solitary, be that hermit, and figure out what's going to fill those cups. I can't keep ignoring them. I can't keep thinking that somebody else somewhere is going to fill them for me. Every time you think that, it seems like more gets dumped out instead of put in. There is something to be said for that vibe as well. Like, you make the same mistakes over and over and over again until there's nothing left to make mistakes with. And then you finally turn inward and say, okay, maybe I need to fill these cups myself. However you get there, it doesn't matter. It's a leap of faith. However you get there, it's not easy. But the alternative is so much worse. What you have to do is not easy, no. But the alternative is terrifying, not just difficult. So having the guts to change your life. Having the guts to find yourself valuable enough to focus on you. Even when things get lovey-dovey and romantic. Growing and cultivating this self-awareness that leads you away from the vanity of perfection within you, and within others. Therefore, naturally creating a depth that may be lacking in your relationships, even in your closest friendships. There is a streak of vanity in Virgo that really does keep people at arm's length. Sometimes you may yourself wonder why people can be a little bit distant, even when you are very forthcoming. And it's because you don't realize that the vanity and the kind of obsession with vanity can really keep people at a distance, because you don't realize it sometimes yourselves how preoccupied you are with it. And it's not a criticism, because everybody is vain. You know what I mean? I would never dare to say that a Virgo is more captivated with themselves than a Capricorn is. No, it's just as Taurus is worse than both of you. So it's not that. It's just that the way you guys do it, you're hyper focused on it, and because you're intelligent, the mix of those two things can make it a very formidable quality within you. It can make it it's very intimidating. And it really does keep people at a distance because nobody is perfect. And, and we know that. And so we know that regardless of how hard we try or don't try, we're never going to make it. We're never going to measure up. But we also know that the person in front of us expects us to and expects everyone to. And if you're thinking, well, I've never really said that out loud. Well, you don't have to say it out loud. You don't have to. It's in the things you don't say, then it's in the things you focus on. And sometimes, I'm sure you've had moments with your friends when someone has called you on it and said, this is the inappropriate time to be asking that or commenting on that or noticing that, So this month is also special in that you are starting to understand how that perfection is alienating. And maybe it starts to explain a little bit of that disconnection that you feel from people around you, even the ones that you're supposed to be really close to. And maybe it also goes a long way in explaining your disconnection from self sometimes, because that judgment, that resentment towards self when one is not perfect, that's probably worse than anything that you do to anybody else. So to find a way emotionally to be not just comfortable, but kind of celebratory about being imperfect. Relish it. Relish being human, which is really the antithesis of perfection, no? That radical self-acceptance, that can lead you in many, many, many fruitful directions. And the one thing you won't be is bored and unfulfilled. So it all ties together. But we'll talk more about that in the extended. I love you. All the links are below. The readings, the tickets for LA, all the events, the merch, everything. Live readings tonight. Check out Cameo. Love you.